All right, so I want to thank our board of directors for taking time to sit on this panel today, and also for their contribution to the chamber. If I could get each of our board members to introduce themselves, and if we could start with Brent, just give us quickly your name and company, and we'll just kind of go through the list here of our board members. So Brent, if you'll get started for us.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for everybody being on. My name is Brent Aldridge. I'm a loan officer with First National Bank Mortgage.
Do I need to call names?
Yes.
Juan, you'll be next, Juan.
Good morning. I'm Juan Frescas. I'm the president of Methodist Mansfield Medical Center.
Okay, Donald.
Donald Williams, Mansfield Independent School District. I'm the Associate Superintendent for Communications and Marketing.
Joe.
Good morning, Dr. Joe Adams. I'm the owner of Calibration Chiropractic.
And Chris.
Chris Bergen with Allies and Youth Development, a local nonprofit here in Mansfield with international reach.
Okay, Peter. Nope, you're muted.
Hang on.
All right, there you go.
So yeah, Peter Phyllis, Deputy City Manager with the City of Mansfield, Texas.
Okay, Alan.
Yes, Alan Beck. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Baylor Scott & White Orthopedic and Spine Hospital.
Mike Aguilar.
Good morning, Mike Aguilar, American National Bank of Texas, District Manager.
Bill Bryant.
Hi, I'm Bill Bryant, the press box coach.
Okay, and Bobby Clark. Oh, you're muted. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Good morning, Bobby Clark with El Primos and with Southern Boat and RV Storage.
Okay, Mr. Bill.
Bill Coppola of the Tarrant County College Southeast Campus President.
Okay, and did I miss anybody? I don't think that I did.
Yes, ma'am. Michelle with Blessing Funeral Home with Lucas.
We're just introducing our board members, Ms. Michelle, but we're glad you're here.
Thank you. My first meeting with y'all, so sorry, I'm not familiar with your protocol.
You're okay. You're okay. I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me get started here. And if everybody will make sure that you mute yourself, please. All right, so let me just kind of set the stage for this conversation. I know that, none of us fully foresaw the extent of what this COVID-19 crisis was going to do. And business has definitely been disrupted, and we will not necessarily go back to normal. Instead, this disruption has changed, and it continues to change the business landscape as we know it. I saw it reported yesterday that 52% of small businesses are in danger of closing within the next 6 months. So our topic today is, how can business leaders react to the challenges, reassess what they do, reconfigure their companies, and reinvent their activities to adapt to this disruption, and then prepare for the new normal. It's interesting, we've all been told what we need to do, what we can't do, and for the last 50 some odd days we've been under that guidance, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now what do we do? There's no one telling you what to do. And so this is definitely uncharted waters for all of us. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of hear from our board and find out what it is that they're doing. So we're going to open it up. I'm going to just ask questions and let the board speak as they wish, and we'll move through that process. My first question, just to kind of get an idea, if you can tell us, how has your business changed? Let's start with that. Juan, I'm going to let you start. Looks like I'm going to have to call on you guys'
Go ahead.
names.
So obviously, for the hospital business, we're experiencing this new phase of the COVID-19 pandemic right now. And I think we're somewhat subject to state and county ordinances. But as those restrictions have started to become relaxed, we've started to see businesses reopen. And I think in the days ahead, our plan is to work on striking a balance between restarting our normal operations, which would be having patients come back into the hospital for elective procedures, and then maintaining a level of preparedness necessary to respond to any potential increases in positive cases we might have. And there's undoubtedly going to be some growing pains, but we'll continue to work on being flexible. But it's been a significant change as a lot of businesses have seen volume or have been shut down. It's been quite the opposite for the hospitals, and for first responders, we've been quite busy.
Okay. Bobby, why don't you tell us what's changed in your business?
Literally everything. For the restaurants, obviously, that has been significant. For a period of time, we could just have to go. And, fortunately, the governor did allow alcohol sales, which was not what you would typically do with TABC, but they're allowing it now. So it's been very difficult to maintain the employees. And, we're struggling on the service side as far as with the federal relief for the unemployment. There's just a lot of people who don't want to come back and work because they make more money, sitting at home. And so that's going to be a challenge for us as we reopen the economy for all of the service sector, but we've had to pivot pretty hard, and the to-go operation has been pretty extraordinary, better than what I would have predicted. But we look forward to having the opportunity of having the restaurant open at some point, fully open, and we're just trying to make the best of the situation. But it's a challenge for us all.
I see that John Simpson is now on the call. So John, if you could tell us how your business has changed since this has happened.
We kind of have the two different tales. We're 70, 80% food retail packaging. So that part has exploded, particularly last month. So we had several customers where the Walmarts, the Costcos of the world said, look, we need 2x of what our normal order quantities are to get stuff back on the shelf. So, that was a big challenge for us. And then there's other parts where, their business just absolutely fell apart. They were deemed non-essential. And so, again, it's a tale of two different stories. What else has changed? It's sanitation. It's social distancing, and we are spending a lot more time doing what we used to do because of that. And so trying to protect all of our employees, keep them safe each and every day, while managing really unusual demand has been quite a challenge.
Okay. I see Matt is on the call. Matt, let me ask you a different question. Let's kind of shift a little bit here. What has changed that's been kind of a surprise?
I think it's the reaction of for the hospital system. It's a reaction of where our patients and physicians' mindsets are. I think where we've opened back up to elective surgeries, we're opening things back up to allow our physicians to bring these patients back into the OR, into the hospital. There's some trepidation by the patients, not fully understanding what the hospital has done in order to ensure their safety and the sanitary environment of the hospital. They see the hospital as, well, they've had COVID patients here, not realizing that those patients are in a completely separate area, completely isolated from anywhere they would be in the hospital. We've also had to work with the physicians as far as how the testing is going to work, how we're providing those services, and providing those safety mechanisms for their patients. I think those are the two pieces of this that have kind of surprised me a little bit, I guess I would say. I mean, I get it, but it's been a little bit more than what I initially considered it would be.
Okay. That kind of leads us into the next question that I had, but I think that everybody, whatever type of customer you have, I think expectations have changed. So can some of you speak to maybe some of those expectations and how they've changed?
Lori, I'll jump in there. Donald Williams, Mansfield ISD. First, how things have changed for us. It's educating our 35,000 plus students in an online environment from a distance learning standpoint. So having to pivot and totally take everything that you've done in person and then doing that online. And I would have to say that our faculty and staff and our teachers have done an amazing job as far as making that adjustment. Our parents have been phenomenal with regard to assisting their child at home with regard to that whole learning experience. So that's been a huge adjustment for us from that standpoint. And then looking to the future as far as what are things going to look like as we move forward in that whole planning process, not just for us as a school district, but for every business that's represented here today as far as what that's going to look like as we move forward. So that's kind of where we're at and what we're dealing with from a school district standpoint.
Anybody else with input so far before we shift gears?
Yeah,
Hey, Lori.
Speaking on that.
Go ahead, Joe, and then Alan's next.
So for us, the expectations that have changed is obviously people expect a higher level of safety when it comes to their health. So having to modify our practice to ensure appropriate sanitation standards and temperature checks on practitioners and patients alike, doing all of that while still maintaining good service, meaning people in a timely fashion. So that has put a strain on us, because it has everybody else in the market. How do we ensure safety but still keep a business thriving has been a challenge. But I think that that's one of the bigger things that we've seen, at least in our industry, is how do we still maintain really good customer service while still bringing that safety aspect in.
Okay. Alan?
No, actually, I was a perfect lead in. Dr. Adams just said it's in the healthcare setting, it is a little different, both on some of the requirements and also how do you enhance those and even going above and beyond, even as Matt was saying, making the patients feel comfortable. It's been a significant change in the healthcare setting, number one, in preparation for the possibility, but also the elective business for all hospitals being decreasing. So how do you get those back? A big challenge of no visitors in hospitals, and that's a significant thing. You couldn't imagine a loved one having a procedure and you not being there, and now they literally are dropping them off at the front door. So how do you maintain that, make the patient but also the family members feel comfortable in the care they're going to receive, and how do you communicate? So we're using different tools, paging systems that we haven't used before that goes directly communicates with the loved ones and gives them updates. But how do you feel comfortable? How do you maintain that customer service? And going over and beyond, even beyond the high regulatory requirements that have been enhanced here recently.
Yeah, I think that just trying to meet all of these changes, but at the same time be able to show differentiation, which is what every business, no matter what you're in business to do, we all have competitors. You have to be able to show some sort of differentiation, but yet we're all under these new guidelines that we have to follow, and they're kind of front and center. So how do you do that? I want to ask you, there's 3 different things I want to talk about. How do you go about business now that we're probably, and I can't remember who alluded to it in the beginning, but we're definitely going to be under probably more government intervention There's going to be more of a scrutiny against business. People are going to be looking and watching to point their finger, and catch you. And this whole new contact-free economy, how do you move about and move forward in that, and rethink what your business model is? So if someone wants to jump in on that.
I'll jump in. So we talked a little bit before the meeting started about the rise of virtual care. I think that technology has been in place for many years, but I think that those of us in healthcare really didn't expect to see or have to leverage it as quickly as we did, and that is becoming the new norm. It's going to be. I think we'll see a lot more of that, particularly with the millennials having the experience. We're all learning to be adept with Zoom meetings now. And, there's electronic prescriptions that are being sent now. You couple that now with virtual visits, I think things are going to change just across the board in healthcare as a whole. And we're just going to have to accept that's a new norm.
I'd like to follow up with that if I can, Juan. He's absolutely right. What it's forced us to do at the college is, of course, just like MISD, we have to move everything quickly online for our students. But also our student services, our advising, working with students with disabilities, all of our services have to move online, not just the instruction. And that is something we kind of been, we knew we had to do, but education is really the best one line to do something. We have a lot of folks that want to do things the old-fashioned way, and this has forced our faculty to really, and our service folks, to move into a support service online, and it's working very well. And so we really see a major change in the way we deliver education in our area here, and especially working with MISD with dual credit. We had to move our 2,000 dual credit students over to online, and not only make sure that they finish their class for college, but make sure they finish their high school class so they can graduate high school this year too. So, so it's been you don't want to say that. It's been a positive mood and the mentality change on everyone.
I'll chime in if I'm allowed. First and foremost, if anyone tells you they know what's going to happen, they're lying. We have to remember that economists are like meteorologists, right? They don't get paid for their performance or their accuracy rate. So, when I look back at what we have to glean from its history. So most recently we had the Great Recession, but we can't use that as a predictive model because this is different. I guess when I think about its difference, there's two main areas. Number one, we didn't have trillions of dollars of government money trying to fund some level of restoration, so that's different. And the other thing is different is that we have a different level of technology today than we did then. So, we could not come out of that Great Recession, or even if you want to go back further to 911 and say, hey, we can rely on Zoom and staying at home technology to be efficient and effective. So all this is different now. So what are we trying to do from a business perspective? It's we've always worked on our strategy and strategic planning, but our new focus is more on strategic execution under a whole bunch of different scenarios. So, regardless of what, all the what ifs. What if airlines never get back to full capacity? What if social distancing becomes a continued norm for not only the next 3 to 6 months, but for a year or two? What if a restaurant business is materially affected, which impacts us? What if the way we go to retail? So, there's so many what ifs that the difference now versus in the past is we're focused on execution. What are we going to do under all these different scenarios? And it's hey, the rules have changed. This is the biggest leadership challenge we'll probably ever have in our careers. So sorry I took all that time, but that's what we're working on.
Okay, Juan has his hand raised.
Yeah, I'm learning this technology.
I know.
That brought up an excellent point. we saw a considerable change in the country after 9/11. With the airports now, there's TSA. I think we're experiencing that in the hospitals now. Now with screening stations at the doors, I don't know that that's going to go away for a while. But and the public was unhappy at the airports, but now they've accepted that's the new norm. So I think to answer that question, what's changed? That's definitely changed. They don't like it now, especially with the lack of visitation. But I believe that people will accept that wearing a mask is going to be necessary, and being temperature checked is something that's going to be required, and it's just necessary. So it's becoming the new norm, and I think the country will adapt to this.
Well, and along those points, Juan and John, I think a lot of the vital piece of this is communication. How you're communicating with your clientele, be that the outside consumer, be that a patient, be that a physician, whatever your clientele is. I think that communication chain is vital to navigate through some of these changes and technological advances we're going to have to utilize in order to make these businesses run the way we need them to. I think that communication is going to be absolutely necessary and vital.
Bill, you made a point in the chat about education being affected forever as well. And I recently read a couple of articles about it, particularly in regards to universities and colleges. So if you want to speak to that.
No, I mean, we have, I got 13,000 students in 2 buildings, and it gets really crowded. And even if we open up face-to-face, we don't know if anyone's going to come. There's a fear of moving. Dallas has already moved the majority. We're trying to figure out how to do social distancing in a classroom. I think usually we put 35 or 40, and now I have to put 10 to 12, and then how to serve the students. I think what we're finding with the education standpoint is community colleges around the country, we're preparing ourselves. I don't want to say a surge, but with many universities going to online instruction, a lot of students who said, well, why should I take an online class at a university in Missouri where I'm going to pay $1,800 for the class? I could take a second class at a community college for $160. Transfer because it's online, whereas without the university fee. So we're really in a wait and see period right now. Our enrollment's down 30%, but it's early yet. And I think we're waiting to see what happens. People are waiting to see what happens in June, July, to see whether we serve. With unemployment as high as it is, we also have individuals who don't have unemployment.
Okay. All right, next line of code.
And then Peter, how does this all affect the city?
Well, they should be on separate.
Right, that's a really good question. So this is, I was sitting here listening to the conversation and understanding that, from a business perspective, businesses are mission driven. They seem to be rather specific in their missions and responsive to those missions, and talking about the nature of what's coming at them. And so from our perspective, and what we're seeing is we're affected in every aspect that we've been talking about here this morning. The hospital piece, the business piece, the education piece. From our perspective, obviously we're in the business of providing emergency services. When you talk to our public safety men and women, this is a very, they refer to it as a very standard operating procedure. They're geared for this type of environment. They're geared for the nature of the emergency response requests that we're getting, and so they've been well equipped. And this is their home. This is what they do every day. But from an operational perspective, we also have a business side of the organization. We provide infrastructure. We provide water and sewer, streets, parks, and also we deal with the development community regularly. And so what this has done is forced us to, unfortunately, we were equipped and we are equipped to deal with the technological aspects of dealing with the public through, accepting permits online, accepting water bills online, the things that, you deal with every day. And that's been rather seamless for us. So the impact from a city perspective will also be felt from a revenue perspective. So we're not unlike businesses in that respect. We're monitoring, the restaurant businesses. We're monitoring the retail businesses. All of those affect our ability to, continue our operational plan. We're visiting with our departments, our managers daily, talking about, contingency plans, things of this nature to make sure that we're responsive to the public in the way that we need to be responsive to the public, but realizing that we have to deal with the constraints that all of us are dealing with, and that is the emergency order declarations as well. So I think from the perspective of education, the medical industry, the retail, the restaurant businesses, I think we're kind of I would refer to us as also, ground zero. I mean, we're seeing a bit of it from every aspect. Our concern is, trying to provide the leadership that's necessary to kind of help move through this. And what we've learned is, people are looking for strength. They're looking for community. They're looking for some hope in this. And so as we move through this, our hope is not to I guess, create an environment where people can't operate their businesses, and an environment that people can't, enjoy their personal freedoms, but at the same time balance, the interest of the public and the safety and health and well-being of the public. Those are some of the things that we've been dealing with, overall, and we're looking forward to trying to move through this. And so our question is, as we move through this, we have to continue to maintain, the business plan model, and be responsive to what everybody's being responsive to. But at the same time, when are we going to emerge from this? We're trying to figure out what is the window of time here, and we think this thing is going to be with us for an extended period of time, year, 2, maybe even 3. And visiting with Clay this morning, our concerns are the impact on the economy and the nature of the economy. We were hearkening back to, where have we seen this before in the history of the country? Everybody talks about the pandemic of I guess, 1918. And shortly after that, what happened? We were in a world war and we were in a depression. That was one environment that we referred to. The other environment is, I think was mentioned earlier, 9/11, 2008. And then, so these are the things that we're looking at to try to figure out how do we position our organization to be responsive to you guys, as well as to the new environment that we're going to be operating in. So I think for all in all, we have a service level that we have to provide. We're engaging technology. We're being responsive to that, as well as dealing with the loss in revenue, as many of us are in this environment, and then dealing with morale, dealing with our employees, trying to keep them motivated, keep them involved, and trying to provide some sense of optimism and hope as we move forward.
So if we talk about moving forward, and I think this is kind of at the point where everyone is, we know that what was yesterday is gone. So moving forward, how do you re-envision what the business model is going to be? What has to be thought about when you think about what's new and what's going to be necessary? Mike Aguilar.
I had a feeling you were going to call on me. There's been some really good points that have brought up earlier. That's new is I heard somebody say that technological advancements, the digital transformations that a lot of companies are going to have to make. I know that I can speak, at least in the community bank world. We, of course, had plans in place to make some of these digital transformations, and we learned very quickly that we were way behind once all of this kind of hit, and had to basically adapt on the fly. A key word that I keep hearing a lot used is pivot. And so we had to pivot very quickly to try to keep up with the way we were going to start doing business through some of this digital platforms, especially when the government and the SBA dropped the PPP out, and how we had to manage and get through that very quickly with changes happening every single day in order for all the banks out there to try and help their customers, and how we could get those funds to them as quickly as possible to help float that payroll while they were struggling. So we've had to move up our plan basically of how we're going to transform digitally with just some of the upgrades and the systems that we're going to have to do. That timeline got advanced very quickly. So that's kind of how some of the new things that we're working on.
Nope, I agree. I was just going to add the same thing. We've already talked about that a little bit, but it's true. A lot of it is technology. It's working remote and virtual. And Juan alluded to that also. We've had it in healthcare for a while, but really pushing the virtual visits. And the government's kind of been on board now with some of the reimbursement that's been a challenge in the past is there. But working smarter, but also realizing that there are those touch points that have to happen in certain businesses, healthcare, some of the retail, the restaurants. So what do we do to make sure that obviously meeting any enhanced regulatory requirements, but also going above and beyond, making sure our customers feel safe and comfortable coming into our establishments, whatever they may be, really thinking outside the box, whether it's cleaning, different air circulation and UV, different things that we can do to make the customers feel comfortable coming in at all of our different establishments that we have here. It's going to be a different mindset. I think we're going to see a lot of innovation on that front. We've already seen some. A lot of it was out there, but again, we didn't get our hands around it, but rapidly we have. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that, making people feel comfortable coming back in.
Yeah, if I can jump in, this is Darren Charles. I think it's going to be bridging the new technology that we're all sort of adapting to quickly and jumping through. Obviously, this has pushed many of our fields forward from a technology standpoint through a really quick evolution. But we're going to be bridging that with kind of the old school, what's really vital to your business, right? So how do we keep those key pieces of your business intact, access and communication and those kind of things with technology? And like they were saying, there are certain industries where there has to be a touch point. So it's not contactless, I don't think, but I think reevaluating where contact is necessary, where maybe in the past we've clung to some old methods of doing things because it's just the way it was done before. And maybe we weren't. I mean, we can see that now. We weren't using technology and innovation to its fullest extent because maybe we were clinging to some of those old patterns and ways of doing things. And so I think finding new ways of doing things where the contact is there, but that technology is abridged with the, like I said, access, communication, those kind of things as well.
I'm going to open it up now to our attendees. If you have a question for our board, feel free to ask it. If not, I have more questions.
This is Michelle Allen with Lucas and Blessing Funeral Home. I just have a question regarding, I came in a little late on the call, obviously. I did not catch as far as like gems and things like that, like PPE or what's required, or I don't even know who to address that to. What are the restrictions, or as well as shopping?
What are you asking? Now the PPP is over. I think those funds are gone, are they not, Mike?
No, PPE, like personal protection.
Oh,
No.
you mean
like
as far as
masks,
guidelines?
Correct. Is that changing as of tomorrow or as of Monday?
It changes on the 18th, supposedly.
Okay.
So on the 18th, the capacity goes to 50%. And office buildings are open on the 18th. But I don't know if that is still where we are or if that's going to change. We haven't heard. So I that's all I know. That was from the last executive order that was out. Peter, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I think, and again, it gets back to this balance that everybody's in search of in this new environment that we're in. I know gyms are open or scheduled to be open, but there are some I would refer to them as stringent requirements to be able to enter and use a gym. And so I think what they're trying to do is afford the opportunity for the operators and the owners of the gym to open up and give the public the ability to, I guess, work out but at the same time we have to. They're being asked to be mindful of their hygiene. So I know pretty specific guidelines that the gym managers and operators will be employing or engaging with the patrons, the customers, and then I know everybody's looking forward to the opening up of the economy. And this is a concern, and I think guys in the medical industry will echo these thoughts. The concern is, this is a pandemic. It is very real, and there seems to be a sense of the idea that if you're opened up 50%, there's a lot of pent-up energy and want to get out of the homes and to go back to normal. But the concern is, how do you operate in this new normal? Do you wear masks? Do you wear gloves? And try to be mindful of those who are, around us, and trying not to spread the disease and trying to minimize the impact of the contagion in the economy or in the community. I know counts are still going up. I think Tarrant County has a good website. I think today they reported over 4,000 cases. So the case count is still increasing. Juan and the other guys can probably provide some more information on that. So the idea is to try to create some opportunity, this balance in letting the American economy roll, and people enjoy their personal liberties and freedoms, but at the same time provide for the safety of each other and to minimize the impact of the spread of this virus. And so office buildings are opening up. The conversation I know here at the city, we are putting a plan together to open up our facilities. And we are following the governor's orders well. But in that endeavor, we are engaging, some of the safe practices that people are using in their businesses. The temperature, the thermometers, and those sorts of things, gloves, masks, and we're doing everything we can to at least create the environment for people to minimize the spread of the virus.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And thank you very much.
Other questions from attendees?
I have a question for Bobby. Now that they've reopened, do you see people that you feel like they're trying to be careful and be wise in what they do, or do you think there's a real attitude of, well, we're basically over this and we're back to normal?
I do not see Bobby sitting in his chair. Bobby is MIA. Anybody else have another question?
Bobby.
Where's Bobby?
Somebody go check on Bobby.
Yeah, exactly. He stays very busy with what he does, running several organizations. So I think he got a call. I would like to know, you know, as we look at this new vision and this new future, you know, what skills do you think are going to become paramount? And especially as you start looking at, since we have TCC and MISD here on the call, you know, as this all shifts, what are we going to be looking for skill-wise? It's kind of obvious, but go ahead. Donald.
I was waiting to see if Mr. Coppola was going to jump on the call first.
I would leave it to the experts there.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. For us, we're going to continue to assess and evaluate and really get a gauge on our business community, because our business community is really going to set the pace as far as what they're going to want moving forward into this new normal that we're looking at. There's the obvious is from a technological standpoint and virtual and all the different ways in which individuals are going to be engaging as we move forward in the future. But the biggest thing for us is we are advising our parents and advising our students as far as what are going to be those jobs of the future. It's going to be so important for us to continually to stay connected to our friends in the business sector to make sure that we're meeting the needs that they have. And we're having those conversations with our students and with our parents, and also bringing our business community into our schools and having them really be able to have those conversations with our faculty and staff, with our parents and our students as well.
Real quick, more of the same thing. I think what we're looking for, what's the requests that are coming to us now from both businesses and also with a high unemployment rate, is more how to get back into the workforce quickly. We've increased the number of certifications we give. We work, and I know our nursing programs working on with Mansfield Methodist as well as other hospitals, respiratory care program also. We have a new person who started about less than a year ago, Shannon Ryan, who's a new Executive Vice President for Corporate Solutions and Economic Development, and Dr. G. would need our chancellor. Vision is to really grow our corporate solutions part of college, and that's really one of his strong points that we brought here, and that's one of her strong points. So you'll be hearing it real quickly this summer through some initiatives that are coming out of the college, to do some training, and also trying to connect the individuals who do jobs with those who hopefully will be able to reopen, but also helping businesses reopen with maybe a minimum amount of staff too.
I have one last question for you. What keeps you up at night?
There are too many kids in the neighborhood now.
Get off my lawn.
Oh, that's great.
Car parades.
What?
The drive-by car parades that are happening now.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many times a day? Come on.
That's a good thing. Come on.
No, I think the some of the obvious, I think we'll all stay here. Obviously the economy needs to open back up, and we're going to see a lot of that over the next week and next month. But just following that balancing act, we know it's going to increase. It's really important for us, all of the healthcare, obviously, but also business leaders, to make sure we manage it so we don't bounce back into I think that'd be very detrimental if it reverts back and gets worse and more restrictions are placed back on. So how do we manage that? That's probably the biggest thing, is seeing that we know it's going to increase, but managing any potential bounce back, because that would be, it's talking about being devastating now, but if we have to revert back, that would be really devastating.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be devastating psychologically for everybody. That would be probably the worst thing, is to go backwards, for sure. Well, Bobby has reappeared, so we don't have to send out a search party. Good to know.
Welcome back.
Well, I'm going to, it's 11:46, and I'm always very conscientious of people's time. So I'm going to wrap up. I want to definitely thank our board of directors for their participation and their insight, and for those of you that attended today. And again, this is recorded, we'll push it out. I think that, just some final thoughts, I think that our collective success is definitely going to depend upon our new business capability. You know, what is it that we're going to do new? What's the new thinking going to be? How are we going to operate in a new way? And even our planning, being able to do three things simultaneously, I think. And the first one is, I think we have to solve the now. You know, what's going on now? Solve that. The second thing is explore what's next. Think about what's next. And then the third thing, to be able to imagine the beyond. And those all three have to be done simultaneously, which is a feat in itself, especially when you're in the middle of the forest, right? So given the accelerated pace of change that we're all in, we just can't stop at thinking about what's next. We just have to keep thinking about what's after what's next, and thinking that far into the future so that we're not caught behind the 8 ball. You know, I think, Juan, you said it when we first started, we've been thrown into the future 15 years from yesterday. And now we're like, what? So that would be the thing that I think, as we move forward, if we can keep those 3 points in mind, I think, and as we go about our planning, I think we'll do well. So again, I appreciate everybody for attending. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you, Lori. Great job.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much. It's amazing. This was amazing.